of the last things my grandma said to me before she passed was, "You're a beautiful and very strong little girl. You'll do amazing things." She told me that she believes in me and that I can do whatever I want in life and I can be whoever I choose. My grandma passed when I was 10. I had already been working for as long as I could remember, probably ever since I could first thread a needle. I spent many long and hard hours just sewing and sewing and sewing alongside Mama and my sister. The needle had almost become a part of me. My sister was better at it. Her stitching was all tiny and perfect. I guess I was okay, but I could never seem to get mine to go completely in a straight line. Sometimes Mama looked up from her work from time to time and said to keep going, that I was doing just fine. It had always been expected of me to pull my weight in the family and help support it. It had always been that way. It was customary. We left Mexico one night in August a year later. I was crouched in the back of this awful-smelling van with Mama and my sister, and I was shivering from nerves even though I could feel the sweat of the night's heat just dripping down the back of my neck. As soon as we passed the border, I could tell because Mama's breathing suddenly changed and her shoulders slowly relaxed. When we got to Texas, I remember everything being extremely bizarre. There were signs everywhere, and I couldn't understand a good amount of it. School was also a challenge at first, but I knew a little bit of English from my aunt who lives in Carrizo Springs, and I caught on to it pretty quickly after a while. I worked constantly while I was in Texas, and especially all the way through high school. I knew exactly what I wanted to do once I graduated, start my own business. Since I was an illegal resident, there wasn't much of a possibility for me to get an education beyond high school. It seemed impossible to get the degree that I wanted so badly. Really, I just didn't understand. How could someone so dedicated and who works so hard and tirelessly be unable to pursue their dream? I was barely able to graduate high school, so it seemed pretty apparent to me after a while that college was out of the question. I still work hard, and I will continue to work hard so that one day illegal residents just like me will have the opportunities that everyone else is entitled to. I still believe my grandma, and I'm never threading another sewing needle again.
My father fled Vietnam 4 years ago after he was threatened for being a Christian. He ran through the jungles of Vietnam before crossing the border into Thailand, where he made it safely to a refugee camp. He stayed there for 7 months before they sent him to live in Durham, North Carolina. My siblings and I waited with our mother in Vietnam until my father was able to file papers to bring us to the United States. We had a very difficult time because we did not have birth certificates, passports, or any identification. And because my mother did not know how to read or write, she was not able to correct our information. Eventually, we made it to Durham and rejoined our father. I have learned English and was able to get us a Habitat for Humanity's house. My parents have not learned English at all, and they depend on me to translate everywhere, with my teachers, in stores, and at the DMV. The hardest time was when my mother was pregnant with my little brother. I had to go to all of her doctor's appointments and describe what was happening, even though I was only 11 years old. I'm in high school now, and have made a lot of friends. I like living in the United States, but I worry that I will never be able to go out on my own like my peers. I think I may have to always stay with my parents and help them get by in this country. I cannot dream as big as my friends. So even though I am a legal resident of this country, I will always be a refugee.
A few years ago, I went over to my friend Shelley's house for dinner. She was my first friend in this country. She helped me learn English. Her mom picked us up after school one Friday and took us back to her house. The place wasn't anything special, but it was spotless. It was like no one lived there. When I told her mom this, she just laughed. "Oh, honey, I always clean on Fridays. That's my day off." I must have looked surprised because I didn't understand why her mom only worked 4 days a week when mine usually works 6. Shelley and I went up to her room to play with her new spa kit, and I soon forgot about the whole ordeal. A few hours later, her dad came home from work, and when we went to greet him, He mentioned how tired sitting at a desk all day had made him. Cue another shocked look from Maria, because that blew me away. My dad spent 12 hours a day working in a field, and her dad is tired from sitting at a desk. I never judged Shelley's family, because there's nothing wrong with the way they lived. They were very nice. But to this day, I still don't believe that my family has to work twice as hard as the normal American family does, and yet we're still struggling with money. Could Shelley's dad work in the sun for 12 hours and still come home and help Shelley with her homework? Did Shelley's mom have to learn a whole new language before someone could hire her at minimum wage? I guess I realized that even the people who are on our side, the ones that believe that we have the right to be here too, are also living like Shelley's family. No one will be able to connect with me until they have lived how I live every day. And that little difference in lifestyle will pull me apart from any American citizen, no matter what their intentions.
Ellos nos necesitan. Trabajamos duro para ellos. They need us. We work hard for them. My father's words, thick with a husky Spanish-American accent, seem as repetitious as the food on our dinner plates. Arroz y frijoles, rice and beans. Again. My mother sees me playing with my food. Eat, it is good for you to grow, she says in her broken English. She's at least tried to assimilate into the American culture. My stubborn father, and his nightly rant about the new immigration laws, clings to his life in Mexico. Ellos no nos quieren aquí. No debería haber salido de Mexico. They don't want us here. We shouldn't have left Mexico. He's always saying things like this. Since he got fired from his sweet potato farm, he's been bitter. I'm tired of hearing him complain and reply, well, you should not have left. I like it here. I'm an American. I'm only half right. I do like it here. I like the food, the American sports, and the friends I've made at my high school. Legally, however, I'm not an American. I was born in Mexico. My mother and father came to America when I was almost 2 years old. My mother has held a steady job with a nanny company for close to 10 years now. She's been trying to gain citizenship for the last 3. My father doesn't respond to my outburst. He only shrugs it off and continues venting about the new public school reforms. This topic, at least, is relevant to me. Alabama recently upheld a law that gives schools permission to document immigration status of every student. I didn't think much of the law until my father told me I would have to stay out of school so that I don't get our whole family in trouble. We fought about it for a long time. Finally, my mother convinced him to let me stay in school until there were signs of trouble. We live in Russellville, a county with one of the highest percentages of Hispanics in Alabama. A few weeks ago, a lot of my Hispanic friends started withdrawing from our school, and a couple even moved. This scared my father, and since then I haven't attended classes, though I'm still enrolled. I only have 9 months of my senior year left before I was set to graduate. A couple years ago, I had dreams of going to a university somewhere far from Alabama and get a degree in accounting. Numbers have always fascinated me. And now a number, 9 months, stands between my dream and reality. Of course, Alabama wouldn't have made it easy to go to a university anyway. They're always passing laws forbidding immigrants from attending public universities. And now, with my father out of a job and my education on hold, I'm left with a blank map, my direction lost. The numbers that used to fascinate me now plague me every time I turn on the TV. The billions of dollars American taxpayers spend to support the thousands of undocumented children in their public school systems. The hundreds of jobs taken from American citizens by the parents of those children, though my father says he isn't taking a job, he's earning it. These numbers get thrown around, misquoted, and taken out of context on every local news show in Russellville. My family has lived in America for 15 years now, and despite my father's reluctance to learn English or adapt to the American culture, we've been productive members of this society. I want to be defined as a human being, not as an illegal immigrant. I want to go study accounting at an American college. Instead, my family and my people are being reduced to the same numbers I used to love.
In Mexico, I wanted to be a lawyer. I was the only girl in my class, and I was doing better than all of the boys. I told them I wanted to be a lawyer. They hated me. They didn't think that a girl should be smarter than they were. No one believed that I would become a lawyer, and they laughed at me. I had been turned down for scholarships in Mexico because my father was a farm worker in the United States and not giving back to the Mexican economy. We were really poor then, and my dad could make more money working on a farm in the US than he ever could in Mexico. My boyfriend Francisco's dad was a farm worker in the US, but he got a scholarship. When I was starting my freshman year in high school, my older brother moved to the United States to be with my dad and convinced him to bring me and my little sister along too. My brother thought we would benefit from an American education, and my dad agreed. I learned English and graduated from Hendersonville High School in North Carolina. I'm a certified nurse's assistant, and when I get my degree from the community college, I'm going to East Carolina for my RN. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm doing something with my life, and I'm happy. My dad is really proud. All our family back home asks him if I'm married yet. If I was in Mexico now, I would be a housewife with no job or education. They don't think much of women there.
Imagine this. You're 5 years old, it's dark, and you don't know where you are. Your mother is pulling you along behind her, but she hasn't said a word to you in hours. Every once in a while, she pushes you down, throws her body on top of you. You see lights, hear a helicopter overhead. A few minutes later, you're up again, walking. Always walking. You've been away from home for a week, sleeping under cover during the day, walking at night. Sometimes, like a 5-year-old does, you try to ask a question. ¿A dónde vamos, madre? ¿Cuánto tiempo más? She shushes you and continues walking. There is no path. You walk through brambles and brush. Your legs are covered in scrapes, but you do not stop. And eventually, you grow tired of walking. You grow tired of complaining, of being quiet, of not knowing where you are. You miss your friends, the broken down playground outside your house, and your father, who moved to a place called America 2 years ago. None of it makes sense. This was me 10 years ago. We made it safely across the border thanks to Coyote, one of the guides who smuggled people to the United States. We met up with my dad in California, and I understand it now. Every day, I think about 5-year-old me and those 2 weeks that changed my life. And every week, every day, every hour, every minute, another parent, brother, sister, grandmother makes the same decision my parents made. And another innocent child gets their life turned around for the hope of a better, more reliable life here in the United States.
Every day in Nogales was a day spent watching young men, and sometimes even families, get brought back to Mexico after being caught by the U.S. Border Patrol. I was supposed to be one of those young men, hoping to find a better life for my family in America. But after I saw the first van loads of people being deported back here, I couldn't do it. I just stayed there, watching people try to cross without any luck. I was scared. I didn't want to die out in the desert, left behind by a Coyote guide if I got sick or fell behind. Once, I heard about a young man who tried to hop the Union Pacific Railroad. He got caught in between 2 train cars and was crushed to death. Then there was the woman I met the night before she tried to cross with her baby. She died of an infection in the desert, and the coyotes left them both on the side of the road. I was staying with a friend in Nogales who made sure my family knew I was still safe. After several weeks, I got a phone call from my mother. I expected it to be one of desperation, saying that if I wasn't going to cross, I at least needed to get a job because they were struggling to get by. Instead, there was hope in her voice. She said that her and my father, had joined up with my uncles and my cousins to join a honey co-op. We can raise bees and produce honey in our community like we always have, except now we can live off that money instead of middlemen taking most of our profits. I don't have to leave my family, and we don't have to worry about making enough money to get by. I never wanted to leave my beautiful town or wonderful family. Given a choice and an opportunity of a happy life in Mexico, most people would not cross the border. These co-ops, they give us a hope for a better future. They give us a choice.